Colombia plans to begin its vaccination campaign against COVID-19 on February 20. The African Union secures an additional 400 million coronavirus vaccines for its members. And thousands in Poland protest against a near-total ban on abortion for a third consecutive day. Hello and welcome to teleSUR. I'm José Daniel López in Quito, Ecuador, and this is From the South. Colombia is set to begin its vaccination campaign against COVID-19 on February 20 after reaching a deal for the purchase of vaccine doses with pharmaceutical companies Moderna and Sinovac Biotech. Colombia aims to have at least 1 million people vaccinated against the virus by the end of March. The government has already secured agreements with several other vaccine-producing companies.
Mass vaccination in Colombia will begin on the 20th of February. The weeks prior to February, we will be sending effective communication. We will be doing pedagogy. We will be doing campaigns. We will have all the logistics with the local health networks. Purchases of vaccine doses have already been completed with the pharmaceutical companies to guarantee vaccination for a target population that we have set in the National Vaccination Plan.
In Mexico, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has said that he's recovering well from COVID-19 after testing positive for the virus earlier this week. The president has been receiving treatment at his apartment in the National Palace.
I still have COVID, but the doctors tell me I am getting through the critical stage. I am doing well. Now, I'm here to avoid rumors or miscommunication. I am doing well, but I still need to be resting. I grew myself today to present this message to you. I have not been like this in these past days, but wearing other clothes. I have been working, paying attention to all the public affairs, especially about the pandemic. I spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who expressed solidarity, and he offered to send us vaccines, the Sputnik V, a vaccine they're producing. Those vaccines produced by Russia, and are going to arrive shortly. I expect by the end of the following week.
In Chile, a fire had broken out at Santiago's hospital, forcing the evacuation of staff and patients. Dozens of firefighters have rushed to extinguish a fire that broke out at the San Borja hospital early Saturday. Authorities have reported no injuries or deaths so far. According to early reports, the fire started on the third floor where intensive care units are located, but authorities are yet to determine the cause of the incident. Still in Chile, social and indigenous movements gathered in the capital's Dignity Square to commemorate the anniversary of the murders of Jorge Luis Mota and Ariel Moreno at the hands of the police. Mota and Moreno were brutally murdered while they participated in the widespread anti-government demonstrations that began in late 2019. Mota lost his life after being run over by a police equestrian corps truck, while Moreno died after shot in the head. This Friday's protest saw strong police repression maintained until the withdrawal of officers at around 7 p.m. local time, when demonstrators began protest actions to demand the freedom of political prisoners at the end of state repression. In Ecuador, the Vice President of the National Electoral Council, Enrique Pita, expressed his opinion regarding the situation surrounding the printing ballot papers for the election of Parliament and the Andean Parliament, which remains behind schedule.
The situation of candidates for the Andean Parliament is a very complicated situation. In the first place, the social justice political organizations has been introducing appeals of the legal nature that have not allowed us to close this chapter. Last night, social justice presented a final appeal before the Electoral Court that prevents us from having the absolute freedom to print the ballots. It is to be expected that if the contentious Electoral Court takes an immediate action with respect to this appeal, we could print the ballots and send them out in time, independently of the electoral packs that were already dispatched to all the polling stations abroad fundamentally. In the event that we have not concluded the legal actions regarding the candidates to the Andean Parliament, the option would be, by force majeure, to call a second round of elections for this process.
Venezuela's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jorge Arreaza, informed about the meeting held with the Vice Minister of Cuba and co-president of the Integral Cooperation Agreement between both nations, Ricardo Cabrizas.
Just met with the Vice Prime Minister of the Republic of Cuba, Ricardo Cabrizas, who is also the co-president of the Integral Cooperation Agreement between Venezuela and Cuba. Here, at the Antonio José de Sucre House, we have received the delegation that accompanies him, and we have been able to talk with the Vice Prime Minister about different topics of the binational economy, our economic projects, and beyond the projects of our Integral Cooperation Agreement in matters of health, education, and culture.
In this regard, Arreaza stated that the meeting with the Cuban Vice Minister consolidated the relationship between the two countries, also discussing geopolitical and economic aspects of importance for the region and the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic.
It has been a meeting in which we were able to update our status, and beyond the blows that imperialism has dealt us in recent years, trying to prevent our fluid relationship, our union, sanctioning companies of both countries, trying to prevent the transport for the production of oil, food products, affecting tourism, affecting the relationship, we can say that the relationship between Cuba and Venezuela is in an exceptional moment, and that it will continue to deepen over the years in the conditions that arise. We made a review in terms of geoeconomic, geopolitics of our region, Latin America, the Caribbean, ALBA, our Bolivarian alliance, and how, with our economic projects and health projects, the production of vaccines in our territories, the status of Cuban vaccines in their scientific testing process, well, there we have it. There will be soon good news in all senses.
We'll take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. Jamaica's former Prime Minister Bruce Golding is said to be resting at home after being involved in a car accident in Old Harbour, St. Catherine on Friday. In a statement, his daughter, Senator Shireen Golding Campbell, said neither her father nor the occupants of the other vehicle involved in the crash appeared to be injured. She added that her dad appreciated the expressions of concern. The former Prime Minister led the country as head of the Jamaican Labour Party from 2007 to 2011 until he resigned. The Secretary General of the United Nations wants the Biden administration to remove Cuba from the United States' unilateral list of state sponsors of terrorism. The information was provided by the spokesman of the UN Secretary General, Stephane Dujarric, who pointed to Guterres' disagreement with the inclusion of the Caribbean island on the list drawn up by the U.S. State Department. The Secretary General's statement came during an interview with the permanent representative of Cuba to the United Nations, Pedro Luis Pedroso, last Tuesday. For his part, Pedroso pointed out that the recent inclusion of Cuba on this list was part of a personal campaign of former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was committed to a discredited foreign policy. Argentine Nobel Prize laureate Adolfo Pérez Esquivel announced the key objectives of his virtual International Conference of Solidarity with Haiti, highlighting the demand of the Haitian people for President Jovenel Moïse to hand over power on February 7th.
There are clear objectives in this meeting, not only of solidarity, but to ask President Moïse to respect the Constitution and allow the Haitian people to make their decision following February the 7th. And therefore, it is a call for solidarity at the international level, because there are many pending situations facing the Haitian people, such as the acts of the UN Stabilization Mission over so many years.
In this sense, Pérez Esquivel denounced how the richest countries as well as the United Nations continue to oppress the Haitian people with debts resulting from military interventions and shady actions of the International Monetary Fund.
The other thing is the mobilization of the Haitian people in order to achieve the right to self-determination. There is a serious crisis, one of poverty and marginality, but also of the rich countries that continue to oppress the Haitian people. The United Nations must provide answers regarding the cholera outbreak and its mission, and also to respect that they cannot continue to oppress the Haitian people with an immoral and unjustified death.
This Friday saw the 5th virtual meeting of the Puebla Group with the participation of leaders from 17 countries of the Latin American region. Participants debated the Progressive Manifesto, a document that seeks to promote a model of development based on solidarity and guarantees the consolidation of Latin America as a zone of peace. They also discussed strategies to advance the reduction of social inequality in the region. The former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa pointed out that the crisis generated by the COVID-19 pandemic exposed the enormous weaknesses of the world.
This terrible ordeal has exposed all our weaknesses as a world, as a civilization, and as a region, but it is proving progressive forces right. The truth is that Latin America has reacted very badly to the pandemic crisis. We have 8% of the world population, but 30% of the infections. We are going to see a bigger economic decline than the global average. The two countries that head the list of death per capita are Peru and Ecuador, two Latin American countries and two countries with neoliberal governments, followed by European countries. But let's remember that the European population is older, and consequently there is a higher mortality rate.
The African Union has secured an additional 400 million coronavirus vaccines for its members. John Kenasson, the Continental Body's Director of Health, told an online media conference that in addition to the 270 million previously secured, the AU will get 400 million AstraZeneca from the Serum Institute of India. The move is part of an initiative by the bloc to vaccinate at least 60% of its population by 2022. Most African nations lack the financial means to purchase the vaccines that had mostly been scooped by rich nations. In an address to World Economic Forum on Thursday, the African Union chairperson Cyril Ramaphosa accused rich nations both buying vaccines and hoarding them to harm of poor nations. The fighting between a coalition of rebel groups and government forces in the Central African Republic has displaced more than 200,000 people. According to the UN Refugee Agency, nearly half of the displaced people have crossed the border into a makeshift refugee camp in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The agency added that the refugees are living in dreadful conditions in camps that do not have running water and other basic necessities. The fighting between the two sides was sparked by the court decision to ban former President Francois Bozizé from running into in the 27th December presidential election, in which President Faustin Archange Touadéra was declared winner.
There was conflict back home in Bangassou. We had to flee because of that conflict and come and find refuge here.
African presidents attended a summit in Angola this Friday to resolve the situation in the Central African Republic.
The heads of state and government condemned the abuses and killings committed against civilian, humanitarian, and UN peacekeepers and called for justice to be done. The heads of state and government renewed their commitment to promote dialogue and permanent consultation between political actors and civil society, with a view to getting the country out of the current crisis, in accordance with the recommendation of the extraordinary ECAC summit held in Brazzaville on December 26, 2020.
Rwanda has been ranked first in Africa and sixth globally in managing the COVID-19 pandemic. The Australian Lowy Institute ranked a total of 98 countries globally, gauging their level in terms of average performance in managing the pandemic within 36 weeks. According to their findings, Rwanda has increased its testing capacity with over 4,000 daily tests. The country's death toll is 183, which represents 1.3% of people infected. The reports revealed that smaller populations and capable institutions were big factors in successfully dealing with the pandemic. Togo ranked second in Africa and 15th globally, followed by Tunisia at 21st, among others. Top three countries that showed the best pandemic management were New Zealand, Vietnam, and Taiwan. On Friday, Zimbabwe extended its nationwide lockdown measures until February 15th. Vice President and Health Minister Constantino Chiwenga delivered a live address on the latest extension of the Level 4 lockdown among a spike in coronavirus-related deaths and rising infections, considering that the measures had stabilized the but there was a risk new variants of the virus spreading. President Emerson Mnangagwa had imposed a 30-day national lockdown on January 5th after new cases. Zimbabwe has reported over 6,100 coronavirus cases and 1,160 deaths. More stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thousands of protesters in Poland have taken to the streets of Warsaw for a third consecutive night after the government implemented a near-total ban on abortion. Protesters have defied coronavirus restrictions and sub-zero temperatures to rally after the controversial judgment was given legal force on Wednesday, January 27, 2021. The verdict means that all abortions in Poland are now banned except in cases of rape and incest or where the mother's life or health are considered to be at risk. The ruling found that abortions in cases of fetal abnormalities were incompatible with the Constitution. The government says that the ban will halt eugenic abortions, referring to the termination of fetuses diagnosed with Down syndrome, but human rights groups said it will force women to carry non-viable pregnancies.
This verdict of the Constitutional Court means that I do not want to have any more children for the moment in Poland, because I want to have the choice and I do not want to run the risk of having to watch my baby die in excruciating pain or have a stillborn. Women should have the right to decide their own bodies, not the government and certainly not the church.
Some of the protesters in Poland also wear green handkerchiefs around their necks, the symbol of abortion right activists in Argentina, which legalized abortion last month. While abortion rights activists in Argentina have expressed solidarity and support with the women of Poland.
Our rights as women, once we win them, are not guaranteed. We always have to be taking care of them because there is a danger of regression, and that is what is happening in Poland. We communicate with the women in Poland via social networks. Obviously, we support and share. We learned that there were arbitrary arrests.
Germany has imposed a partial ban on travelers entering the country from nations where the new variants of the coronavirus have spread widely. The new ban affects travelers from Britain, Ireland, Portugal, South Africa, and Brazil and will be valid until February 17.
Since midnight tonight, there is a new coronavirus safety measure. The federal police is under order to check the travel ban on flights from the so-called virus variant areas. These are the 5 countries at present: Britain, Ireland, Portugal, South Africa, and Brazil. We are checking the travel ban, which means no travelers from these countries are allowed to enter Germany.
France's Prime Minister Jean Castex has said his government will apply strong punitive measures against individuals that are violating the restrictions put in place by the government to curb the spread of the coronavirus.
Police and joint arms will be mobilized to monitor the non-respect of the curfew, the organization of clandestine parties and illegal opening of restaurants to a great extent. The excesses of a few will not be able to ruin the efforts of all. An instruction of particular firmness will therefore be applied to those who defraud the rules in force. Together we have made our best effort to speed up the vaccination, and tonight nearly 1.5 million French people received their first injection. Our duty is to do everything we can to avoid further confinement, and the next few days will be decisive.
In Italy, several right-wing parties asked President Sergio Mattarella to dissolve parliament and call for new elections to solve the political crisis of the country. According to local media, President Mattarella started a consultation to define possible solutions to the crisis unleashed after the new former Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte lost his political support and was forced to resign last Tuesday. According to the head of the state's spokesman, Giovanni Grasso, Mattarella gave the president of the lower house of parliament the task of negotiating a new coalition that will allow the recovery of a new governing majority. According to political analysts, Conte maintains his ambition of obtaining a new mandate with the support of the Five Star Movement and the center-left Democratic Party. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a 5-year extension of the START nuclear treaty with the United States. President Putin signed the federal law of ratification that seeks to extend the treaty between Washington and Moscow, which relates to measures to reduce and limit their strategic offensive nuclear arms, first established in 2010. After a telephone conversation between the Russian and U.S. presidents on January 26th, it was agreed that the respective working teams will fine-tune the details of the extension of the treaty until 2026. The nuclear disarmament pact limits the arsenal of the two powers to a maximum of 700 deployed missiles, as well as 1,550 nuclear warheads and 800 launchers deployed and in reserve. We come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.